In 2018, David Gordon Green began the journey into Haddonfield, Illinois, where he would create a trilogy of Halloween movies that are all in their own way very polarizing, but all a branch of just the original 1978 film. When it was first announced, a lot of people were rightfully excited. We were told that this was going to erase all other continuity and it was going to be solely Laurie versus Michael. And Michael is the shape again. A man, but with evil inside of him. In 2018, did incredibly well with critics and fans alike and blew the doors off of the box office. So quickly, Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends were greenlit. It was going to be a trilogy. Kills and Ends were supposed to shoot back to back. They were going to come out in consecutive years. And this was going to wrap up the story for Laurie and Michael Myers. Halloween Kills came out, and although the reviews weren't awful, they were definitely more middle of the road, and the box office receipts were down. So the filmmakers took a pause. They didn't want to film these back to back. They wanted to think on what they had put out there already, address some criticisms, and maybe try some new things. Now, I should say that this was the plan before Halloween Kills, but they did this in anticipation for corrections. They did this because they wanted to listen to what people had to say and to see how the first two films would be perceived when they were both out there before they gave us the concluding chapter of the trilogy. So fast forward to October 2022, and Halloween Ends is officially unleashed on the world. And although a lot of people will have you believe that Halloween Ends is just this bastard child that is sunk the franchise to depths that it had never seen before, first off, the critical score for Halloween Ends is nearly identical to Halloween Kills. The box office wasn't that much different, and with horror films, especially slasher films, there's usually a law of diminishing returns with coming back sequel after sequel. So that was to be expected. Also, Halloween Ends is in the top half of the Halloween franchise in fan and critic ratings. So why would people have you believe that this movie is just some abomination? Well, because this movie dared to do things that this franchise hadn't done before. Now, I want to start this video off by saying, if you're someone that's not a fan of Halloween Ends because it's not where you would have taken the character of Michael Myers or Laurie Strode, I completely respect that. I'm not going to sit here and rant to you guys about how I'm right and how you're wrong and how if you don't see things my way, well, then you have no place here. No, quite the opposite, actually. I enjoy conversation. I enjoy differences of opinion, and I welcome yours. But having said that, I hope that you can take the time to listen to this and hear mine, and maybe understand why, even if the film didn't work for you, maybe why it does work for some people. And maybe that doesn't mean anything other than the movie struck a chord with them, and film is subjective, right? So rather than break down the plot bit by bit and scene by scene, I kind of want to just give you a quick overview, and then I want to talk about the contentious areas of debate. I want to give my reasons for why I love them, and why, at the very least, I think they make sense. Now we pick up in October of 2019, and we meet a new character, Corey Cunningham. Corey Cunningham's a nice kid, has plans for his future, and a family that he does yard work for has asked him to babysit their son. Well, when the son tries to play a practical joke and ends up dead by accident, Corey has become the town pariah. Jump to 2022, everybody hates Corey. He's a monster. Michael Myers has been gone, so he's the new boogeyman. Well, Allison has a kinship to him. She knows what it's like to feel like everybody's watching you and talking about you and thinking things about you. She's drawn to him. Laurie is too, at the beginning. But as the abuse gets worse, Corey descends down a path where it is clear he will never be redeemed. Corey has decided that he's going to be the match that burns Haddonfield to the ground. Everyone that wronged him will pay the ultimate price. Laurie Strode's trying to put her life back together. Allison's just trying to survive. And meanwhile, Michael Myers lurks out in the shadows. And it all ends with Corey, Laurie, Allison, and Michael, and quite the rectangle of chaos and insanity. But how did we get there? What points of the story are important to talk about? Why did this happen? Why is it believable? I first want to address Laurie Strode. The decisions they make with Laurie Strode's character in this film. why I think they're believable, and why I quite like them. We pick up in Laurie's writing a memoir, and by all accounts, she's getting her life together. She's tired of running from the boogeyman. She's tired of expecting him around every corner. She's tired of fighting. She's tired of waiting for madness and chaos to ensue. There's no better time than now to put the pieces back together. Now, a lot of people had issue with that. They said, well, in 2018, Laurie was basically Sarah Connor. She had built a fortress, she was armed to the teeth, and she was waiting every day for 40 years for Michael Myers to break out. Why now, after the events of 2018 and Halloween Kills, when he is presumably still on the loose, would she just be like, you know what, screw it, whatever, I'm fine? I hear you. It's definitely a different turn, because every time we've seen Laurie Strode in this series after the original Halloween, she's been closer to the 2018 version than the Halloween Ends version. I think that's why it's beautiful. What it says about Laurie Strode is a lot, honestly. What it says about Laurie Strode is that she has realized that the decisions she had made up to this point in her life got her nowhere. Got people killed, maybe. Created hysteria throughout her town. It was a ball of wax that, once it got rolling, was just unstoppable. She looks back and thinks, did I do a lot of this? Did I make the boogeyman more than he actually was? Did I make matters worse and not better? I think that's very believable, especially for a character that we're supposed to believe is intelligent, a fighter, cunning. She would take those life experiences and say, where has this gotten me? Nowhere. Also, it's believable because in Halloween Kills, for the first time in Laurie's life, she is told very plainly, this was never about you. See, she was right to feel that way in 2018 and in Halloween Kills. That she always had to be prepared. She always had to be ready for Michael. Because in her mind, Michael was always after her. She believed that Michael Myers always wanted to kill her. He was going to make it his mission to kill her. That she was marked. But Hawkins finally tells her in Halloween Kills, this was never about you. He doesn't seek you out. He doesn't care about you. You're insignificant to him. That realization in Halloween Kills, coupled with the fact that Laurie's life has been in shambles because of a lot of the decisions she'd been making, she decides, no, I'm done. Because even if he does come back to Haddonfield, as he will later in the movie, that doesn't mean she can't be ready for him, as she is in the movie. Just because she decided to try to move on after finding out that this was never about her, doesn't mean that she's not still always thinking about it and ready in a moment's notice. So not only do I think the arc is believable, I think it was the right way to go with Laurie's character. I really do. It showed growth from Laurie Strode. And it's a great performance by Jamie Lee Curtis. There's moments in this movie that harken back to the 1978 film. Laurie twirling her hair in the grocery store while she's talking to Hawkins and having that awkward yet super endearing conversation with him. That's my Laurie Strode. That's the Laurie Strode that I knew from that 1978 film. That shy, awkward, nerdy girl that at the end of the day just wants to be liked by a boy. Just wants to have fun. Just wants to be free. She wouldn't allow herself to be that way because for 40 plus years she thought she was Michael Myers' target. That she, for some reason, was partially to blame for all of this. She never was. And it is absolutely beautiful writing and is even better performance by Curtis to portray that on screen. This wasn't about me. And I'm not going to let this boogeyman that could have stumbled upon anyone on that Halloween night in 1978 destroy my life any further. Jamie Lee Curtis delivers a powerhouse in this movie. She's got genuinely funny moments, cute moments, intelligent moments, And of course, you get a few of your badass Laurie Strode moments, because it wouldn't be a Halloween film with Jamie Lee Curtis without some badass Laurie Strode. So I love the direction they took her character. And I think it was the best thing to do, and a natural progression for the character of Laurie Strode. We also see at multiple points throughout this movie what the town thinks of Laurie Strode. There's a conversation by the father of Jeremy, the kid who died at the beginning, between him and Laurie Strode, that you can tell just by the way Curtis portrays it on her face, it is exactly how she feels. He's talking about how the town, how others took his pain and made it theirs. Almost like taking the power from him, taking his grief and saying, this is our grief too, and minimalizing what he went through. And she feels the same way. She's confronted by people throughout the town, or talked about on the radio station about how it's her fault, how it was her boogeyman, she provoked him, she brought this on the world. This town has lost its way. But we'll get to Haddonfield in just a moment. Next up is Allison. Allison's an interesting character here. See, Andi Matichak has a very nice screen presence and has never been bad in any of these movies. But I never felt like they gave her enough to do. In Halloween 2018, she just seems too much like the Kroger brand Laurie Strode. Her and her group of friends are just supposed to be the new generation, but it never quite resonates the same way. In Halloween Kills, they go a little overboard with her and try to give her a bunch of these like badass one-liners that don't always land, because that's not how they should have written to Andi. See, finally in Halloween Ends, I feel like they wrote to Andi's strengths. They finally wrote Andi Matichak's Allison Strode, not David Gordon Green's idea of Allison Strode. This is by far Andi's best performance in the series, bar none. I think a lot of that has to do with the script, but I think that she just feels at home in this role finally. She's starting to find a place for herself. Allison is rightfully pretty much done. Let's just call it like it is. Her mom has been killed, her dad has been killed, her friends have been killed. What is there left? She just feels alone, lost. She has nobody in her corner, aside from her grandmother. But she blames her grandmother and has a lot of resentment towards her for what happened to her friends and family. Sometimes she puts on a good face, but, you know, deep down, she has that resentment in her heart. And she meets Corey. And a lot of people have issue with Allison falling so hard so quickly for Corey. Not only is it not unheard of, it's actually very common for vulnerable people in vulnerable situations to act rash, to make decisions in an instant, to not think, to just do something. Full bore, full steam ahead. So the fact that she finds somebody that she feels like gets her, and she just goes for it. What does she have to lose at this point in her life? She's already lost everything. She wants to live in the moment. Now you could say it's a little self-destructive for her, and I would agree. But also, she doesn't want to be held back anymore. What is there to wait for? Nothing. Go for it, Allison. And she does. I feel like we are looking at what Laurie Strode was like right after the events of Halloween. We never got to see that in between time, in this continuity. We get to see a little of it in Halloween H2O, but never in this continuity did we get to see that in between time. And I feel like this, with Allison, is exactly what was going on with Laurie when she was in her early 20s. She probably partied a lot. She probably dated boys. We already heard about the failed marriages, the child that she had. Allison is going down the same path. She is her grandmother, and she doesn't even know it yet. That is such a more effective way of showing me that Allison is the new Strode heroine than giving her a group of friends and saying, hey, isn't she like Laurie? No, this is so much better. It carries so much more weight. So Allison, her arc here is complicated, but not at the same time. It's spelled out pretty clear for us. Because of the events that happened, she's not acting rationally. She's not thinking rationally. She's making mistakes. She's still a kid. Now, most kids don't end up dating a serial killer, but, you know, this is Halloween we're talking about, people. So I really like what they did with her character here. Don't make her that boring, bland, I'm Laurie Strode 2.0. No, no. It's too on the nose. It's been played out at this point. Let me see her live. Let me see her make mistakes. Let me see her fail. Let me see her grow. But most importantly, let me see her triumph. Which brings us to our next character. Easily the most controversial character and everybody's favorite whipping boy, Corey Cunningham. Now let me just say, Corey Cunningham is by far my favorite character this franchise has introduced in years. Hands down, not a question. Corey Cunningham is so fleshed out. His arc is tragic. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me just say, to the group, and it's actually most people, including myself, that say Corey should have been introduced in 2018 or at the very least Halloween Kills. I completely agree. I do. I won't argue with you on that. Absolutely. Why keep a character like this from us? Some of you might say, well, it's because they had no idea. I don't buy that. I really don't buy that. See, one of the co-writers, Paul Brad Logan, David Gordon Green himself, have talked about how they had a rough outline for where this was going after 2018 came out. I don't know if I think they did beforehand, but once Halloween 2018 came out, I think they kind of knew roughly where they wanted to go. So yeah, I would have loved to see him earlier. It would have made his fall all the more tragic. It couldn't have hurt whatsoever. But it didn't happen that way. He's introduced in Halloween Ends. So we got to take it at face value, what we do have. And my God, is this a wonderful character. So as I said at the beginning, with what happened with Corey when he was babysitting Jeremy, he has become the town pariah. And this will lead us into the next section. But before we dive into Haddonfield itself, let's just talk about Corey Cunningham. He's a victim. He absolutely is. The kid was trying to be funny and was being a little asshole, and his practical joke ended in tragedy. Corey didn't do anything on purpose. He didn't do anything to be with malicious intent. But from that night, everyone in this town has marked him as pretty much the new Michael Myers. He's a psychopath. He's a kid killer. Oh, it's Corey Cunningham. He's ostracized. Everyone, at any chance they get, puts him down, bullies him, abuses him verbally, mentally, physically. He's a good kid. He really is. When you're first introduced to Corey, he has such great aspirations for his life. He wants to be an engineer. He's going to go to school. Seems like he's very well put together, very friendly, very neighborly. Even after the tragedy, he still just tries to keep to himself. He doesn't want to create waves. The town is pushing Corey down a path to where the old saying goes, if people continue to tell you you are something long enough, you start to believe it and become that something. And that is the tragedy of Corey Cunningham. There was nobody there in his corner. There was nobody there to defend him. This town marked him. Michael's gone. You're the new Michael. Deal with it. You're a psycho. You're a serial killer. You will never be afforded the opportunities that every normal citizen gets because we believe this about you. That's the tragedy of Corey Cunningham. It's not right in any sense of the word. And meanwhile, he's still trying to trudge on. You know, I see so many complaints so often about, oh, the band geeks. The band geeks bullying Corey. How pathetic. First, I just want to say, one of the co-writers, Paul Brad Logan, put this in the movie because it is a personal experience he had of being bullied by, you guessed it, high school band kids. Secondly, these are seniors in high school, 17, 18 years old. They're not exactly children. Third, Corey's what, 21? Not much older. But most importantly, most important of all, it is to show the audience that Corey is not what they think he is, what they say he is. If Corey lays a hand on these kids, if he just decks one of them, what does the public perception of him become? Yep, you're exactly what we thought you were. First you kill a kid, now you're beating kids. He's a felon. He goes to prison. He validates everybody's worst fears about him. Corey doesn't want to make waves. That's not his goal. His goal is literally to just exist, to try to get by. And they will not let him. I get if some people think it's, a little ham-fisted or a little corny or whatever it might be, but that doesn't mean it's not plausible. Too often we have these arguments about things that are presented in films saying that this is not plausible, it's not likely. That's not true. Separate your opinion sometimes about how you internalized it and accepted it or didn't accept it from that could never happen, because they're not the same thing. And that's very important. By the time Corey gets the mask and goes full Michael Myers, he's gone. The sweet kid that we were introduced to, that wanted to do big things, that was a victim, that was ostracized, he's gone. Who's to blame? Is it wrong to put the blame on the town? Is that not fair? Why blame the town when someone makes these decisions? No, I think the two biggest people to blame, entities to blame, are the town and the evil itself. That evil that permeates throughout Haddonfield. That evil that is inside one man. That evil. It gets Corey. He was vulnerable. And he'd been pushed to his limit. See, the town of Haddonfield, over these last few years, has become just a shell of itself. Starting in 1978, this town has been ravaged by one man. But it is at an all-time low in this movie. Anytime somebody dies, the town panics. Is it Michael Myers? Is he back? People not being able to live with the losses that they've suffered. People not being able to function normally. People not being able to face Michael face to face and get answers and grieve. So they put it off on others. Laurie Strode, Corey Cunningham, Allison Strode. They're the ones to blame. They take their anger and their frustration out on the wrong people. The town has cannibalized itself. It needs this boogeyman, or so it thinks. It's trapped in this perpetual cycle of, well, bad shit keeps happening and it's all because of this or this person. So, you know what? That's just the way it is. We're all going to be unruly, hateful assholes and we're all going to point the finger. The town is in need of a catharsis, an exorcism. It gets that near the end of this movie. But I think it's a beautiful representation of Haddonfield. And I don't mean beautiful in the sense that, oh, it is just so poignant. And no, it's not a beautiful town. It's beautiful to finally show Haddonfield as a character. We've never seen it on this level in the movies. We've seen Haddonfield as a character in Halloween 4. Pretty well. I liked the way they portrayed Haddonfield in that movie. But I think this is by far the best. Haddonfield itself needs a release. And that release is coming. But how do we get there? Why did Corey really snap? What was the final straw? Why did Michael really come back? What is at the root of all of this? Evil. So that brings us to the crux of what this movie and this trilogy as a whole is actually about. Evil changing shape. Evil takes many different forms. A big issue that people had in this movie was that Michael Myers got manhandled by Corey Cunningham, and that all of a sudden he was no longer the Terminator that we had seen in Halloween Kills, and that was bullshit, and that was unrealistic, and that's hashtag not my Michael Myers. To that I say, that was always David Gordon Green's intention. He publicly said that before Halloween 2018 came out, how they wanted to take Michael back to his roots. He's just a man. He ages. He gets injured. He's driven by a force, but at the end of the day, he's just a man. He's not supernatural. If anything, the qualms you have about that are with Halloween Kills, not Halloween Ends. As fun as Halloween Kills is, it is a blast. It muddied the waters for this trilogy because it gave people ideas about Michael Myers that just were not accurate. Michael Myers has always been a man. We as fans, as film goers, put him on this pedestal. Ran with all these theories. The lore throughout the franchise created this embodiment of pure evil. And while he is purely and simply evil, he is a man. But there's something that drives him. And the moment that he meets Corey in the sewer, and Corey's life is flashing before his eyes, and Michael, maybe inadvertently, maybe intentionally, they don't spell it out, passes some of that evil into Corey, it's like it's starting all over again. Laurie's writing in her memoir about how evil never dies, it just changes shape. The opening credits with the pumpkins changing it's just a visual representation of evil taking new forms. Corey is the new Michael. It might be hard for some people to hear that because we hadn't seen that play out on screen up to this point, although a lot of you clamored for it after Halloween 4. We're finally seeing it. When Michael gets taken down by Corey in the sewer. Why is that so unbelievable if he's infected by the same evil? But I don't understand. The movie is telling you they are so much more alike than you think, but the point is, that evil that's in Michael is now in Corey too. Level playing field. That's what this trilogy has always been about. That's what this franchise has always been about. The evil that infected Haddonfield and turned it against each other, turned it against itself, turned it against Laurie Strode and her family, and turned it against Corey Cunningham. That helped create and facilitate what Corey Cunningham became. That helped create and facilitate the lifestyle that Laurie Strode led. That helped create and facilitate the mass murder that Michael Myers committed in Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills because they got too overzealous. That's what it's always been about. Human error. Evil infecting them. Us always being surrounded by evil. Always being susceptible to it. But do you let it in? Haddonfield let the evil in one too many times. And we're seeing the fallout from that. It's poetic. It's a tragedy. By the end of the movie, when Laurie kills Michael Myers for good, very crucifixion style, it's symbolic. What's more symbolic is them crushing him to bits. It's the catharsis for the town. It's the exorcism. All of a sudden, Haddonfield has this weight lifted off its shoulders. Things are different that November 1st. Different than they've ever been in 40 plus years. Michael was the boogeyman. But he was the boogeyman that they created. Because even when he wasn't around, they kept his memory living. They created new ones to take his place. That's the tragedy of all of this. The evil. It infected them all. It infected this town. So I guess in summation, what I'm trying to say is Halloween Ends is by no means a perfect film. There are things that happen that are convenient. There are things that, quite frankly, should have been introduced sooner or fleshed out better. That's the problem when you get to the end of a trilogy. You know it's the last one. You got to tie up all the previous threads, and if you create new ones, you better tie those ones up too. You're up against the clock. But we see this tragedy play out on screen. We see this connection between Corey and Michael. And it's not this Batman and Robin thing that people make memes about, although they're funny. No. They're just infected by the same evil. They both got to point B, but they got there in different ways. It's kind of a play on us being a lot more alike than we think. And also being a play on evil's a lot closer than you think at all times. It comes as no surprise to you, if you've known me for any amount of time, that I adore this movie. I think that the themes that it touches on are beautifully tragic. I think that the performances are all around great. I think it is absolutely, without a doubt, the most cohesive, tight script of this trilogy. The moments that are there for comedy are genuinely funny. The moments that are there to be sad are genuinely sad. There's so much mirroring going on. There's so much happening throughout the movie that's leading us to the finale. There's so many parallels. There's so many winks and nods. Corey standing over the staircase with the knife after Jeremy dies, just like Michael was in 1978. Corey's hand being healed when he's near Michael because of this connection they have, the shared evil. Corey and Allison dancing at the bar at the Halloween party in the same position that she will later find him bleeding out. It's all there throughout the movie. This movie is so layered. This movie, without a doubt, is my favorite of the David Gordon Green trilogy. As I said, I admit that they should have put a lot of these things out there sooner. I would have loved to have them fleshed out more. But we didn't get it till Halloween Ends. And you know what? I'm okay with that. Because at least we got it. And I know it's a movie that doesn't work for everyone. And I know it's a movie that some people are never going to forgive. And I understand that. This may not be the Michael Myers that you wanted. But damn it, I didn't think it was mine either. I went into this movie trepidatious and scared and worried. And I walked out blown away. Because for the first time in a long time, this franchise dared to swing for the fences. And for the most part, nailed it. It was weird. It had more to say. It was just an experience that I never expected to have. I'm sad to see this trilogy end. I'm sad to say goodbye to my final girl. I'm sad to know that we're going to be waiting for however long until Michael Myers comes back. But if this truly were the last time he were ever on the big screen, it's a good way to go out. And as I said, I'm not trying to change your guys' minds. And I'm not even trying to argue with you. I just wanted to give you guys my argument. Why I love this movie so much. I don't love it because I want to be different or I want to stand out. No. I don't look at film that way. I have a lot of movies that I love that a lot of people hate. I also hate a lot of movies that a lot of people love. Sometimes films just resonate with you. This one did, and I'm very happy that it did. And I hope that one day this movie will start to get more appreciation from some that didn't like it. That is my hope for this movie. That is my hope for you. But until then, just know that Halloween doesn't ever end. It just changes shape.